Up next, we check in on the grain markets, and joining the program this week from DTN is Todd Hultman. Todd, good to see you. Thanks for the time.
Thank you, Bryce. Always a pleasure.
Well, let's jump in. We'll start on the corn side of things. People keeping a close eye on the planting progress as USDA continues to come out with the weekly reports. And you noted progress is on schedule, but you do have some lingering concerns. What are those?
Yeah, well, this spring here in the Western Corn Belt and the Central Corn Belt, we've been hit with just about everything. We've seen heavy rains, severe storms, tornadoes, flooding in areas, damaging winds, hail, just about everything you could want out of a spring. And in spite of all that, we're still keeping a very good planting pace for both corn and soybeans. I think it's a bit of a testament to the farmers to stay out there in the fields, sometimes in tough conditions, but also maybe to some better equipment than we had years ago. But whatever the case, the overall progress is keeping up. But it's the remaining planting that I'm concerned about, and especially for corn. So we've got 17% of the crop left. Just how much of that is still fields that are too wet? Just how much time is it going to take? We've got another week of rain in front of us before we get to drier, warmer weather. And I think probably by the time we get to our planning report, we still may have some areas of prevented plantings. And if not prevented plantings, maybe it'll just be so late that instead of corn, they'll think of something else to plant, probably soybeans.
Obviously, that's a story worth paying attention to, but maybe on the flip side of that coin, perhaps a discussion not happening enough for the areas that have been dry the past couple of years, like those in eastern Nebraska, parts of Iowa. They're planting into some really good soil conditions this spring, aren't they?
Oh, fantastic. The profile of soil moisture across the Midwest, Bryce, is the best we've seen probably since 2020 for a lot of the areas. And it's, especially in the Western Corn Belt, we've had a very long dry spell. And last year, we saw a lot of that dry, hot weather, especially toward the end of the year. So it is nice to start out with some decent soil moisture profile this year. And I have to say, in spite of all the planting obstacles we've had this spring, I think that's keeping everybody thinking that we're still going to have some big crops this fall.
Let's switch over to the soybean side of things. Looking at your commentary you posted on DTN, you note in the soybean complex at this point you could see prices going either way. Why is that?
Yeah, well, there's an obvious bearish scenario here, and that's the possibility that some more acres may be added to soybeans by the time we get to the June 28 report from USDA. If the planting dates become too late, we could see some additional soybean acres. We're already seeing a shift up to 86.5 million estimated in the March report from USDA. If that goes to 87 or 88, we're talking about a 4.5 billion bushel crop or so, and that would probably add to our ending stocks in the fall. So that's kind of the orthodox bearish view at the moment. On the other hand, Bryce, we've seen a situation where Brazil had a big soybean harvest. They got hit a bit at the end of their soybean harvest period here by flooding in southern Brazil, but overall, they're still going to come in with a big crop, and they have come in with a big crop. But the amount and strength of demand coming out of China is really eradicating those soybean supplies or shrinking those soybean supplies very quickly. And we're seeing quite a rebound in Brazil's soybean price fairly early in the season. If that type of thing continues, you have to think that China could be a customer perhaps by late summer for the US. And in fact, last week there were some rumors of some US business going to China dated for the late summer, but we haven't seen any confirmation of that yet.
Okay, pay attention to that story as well. Again, looking at your commentary, noting in the wheat side of things, the current rally the most bullish of the year. What are the factors leading to the bullish sentiment?
Oh, we've had several things going on. They've been talking about low wheat stocks in India. There's talk about their tax on wheat imports could be taken away starting in June. If that is true, that opens the door to the possibility of a big customer for the world, probably Russian wheat for that. Earlier this year, we saw freeze damage across northern Europe. We've seen extremely wet conditions that's hurting wheat production in Western Europe. But the biggest of them all, Bryce, and the crown jewel here is the Black Sea wheat region. They got hit with some freeze damage earlier this month, and now they've been sitting in dry conditions for several weeks now. We've got a hot forecast ahead. There are some chances for light rains this week, but overall, the conditions for Western Ukraine and Southern Russia are not looking so good right now, and some private estimates are already starting to come down. So it's gonna come down to weather and just how big of a hit that region takes. But the bigger the hit, the better it is for that world wheat price, because we've seen 2 years where wheat prices have just been really in the basement, dominated by the exports from Russia.
So based on all these factors you're talking about today for corn, soybeans, and wheat, Todd, we did see a bit of a slump here midweek as you and I are discussing things on Wednesday. But big picture, when we see a rally in these markets, is now a time to reward it for both old and new crop?
Um, well, of course, old crop, we're long gone as far as our advice on old crop. So if you have any left over, this rally was definitely worth taking advantage of to get out of that. And I'd say yes. For new crop, we started some light forward sales on soybeans earlier this week. And I'm holding off on corn just with the thought that there could be a surprise in the June 28 acreage estimate for corn. But I think it's going to be tough in a year like this to get too far ahead out on your forward sales this year, given all the uncertainty of weather events happening around the world. But there is a case to be made to get a light start.